Experts say the Ebola virus can be transmitted at a distance from infected victims, and professors say health workers are being put at risk. In a piece published by CIDRAP, the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, authors Dr. Lisa Brosen and Dr. Rachel Jones highlight how Ebola currently has unclear modes of transportation.
Ebola fear spreads around the country.
There are fears the outbreak will continue to spread.
Americans panicked over a possible Ebola outbreak.
Fear and panic over a possible Ebola outbreak.
Ebola outbreak. Growing fears about Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
Tested for Ebola.
The numbers is going up rapidly, faster than what we thought, forcing us to adapt our plans and our strategy on a daily basis. It is really an extremely challenging situation for everyone. And MSF, we can't do more than we're doing now. We've opened this center a week ago. It's completely full today. We are desperately trying to get more beds. We have bulldozers and rub holes getting up. We're recruiting staff, we're training staff, but we would like to do much more, but our first priority needs to be the security and safety of our staff. So we can't go faster than what is safe. Ebola today is all over the city. All areas, all districts of the city today have people dying and people getting sick every day. So the population has turned and they are now afraid. They are asking for help. They don't know how to respond to this, because if they call the hotline, nobody will come and pick them up because the system is completely overstretched. There are too many and the response is too weak. It's very important to understand today this is more than an Ebola outbreak. Today we're facing a humanitarian crisis and it's evolving in front of our eyes and it's getting worse every day. The healthcare system has more or less broken down. Hospitals have closed, clinics are closed, some of them have reopened, but the staff is afraid to go back because they're afraid to get the disease. There's been too many healthcare workers who died.
Is there any cure for Ebola?
ZMapp.
So the drug that many people have read about in the media is something called ZMapp.
ZMapp.
This used to be an orphan drug. What companies now actually see the potential for profit in developing an Ebola therapy?
ZMapp.
20-year-old Ebola treatment that could save Kent Brantley. That actually preceded by a couple of days all the mainstream media accounts attributing the recovery to ZMapp. And what they have here is a quote from Franklin Graham, president of Samaritan's Purse. He said, on Thursday, Brantley was given a shot at survival. A 14-year-old male Ebola patient who had been under Brantley's care and survived donated a unit of blood to Brantley, according to Samaritan's Purse. The young boy and his family wanted to be able to help the doctor that had saved his life. Well, that's very interesting because even though they recovered, they got the blood transfusion as well as ZMapp, we had two other patients who were given ZMapp that died. I don't know if they were given any other treatment. I don't know if they were given a blood transfusion. We still have 3 who were given the ZMapp vaccine, and it is unclear what their condition is at the moment. So if you just look at those numbers, and there were only 7 treatments that were sent out before they ran out of supply of the ZMapp vaccine, it doesn't look like it's any better than what people are experiencing in terms of recovery rates without that vaccine. Since Dr. Brantley recovered, another American doctor, Dr. Richard Sacra, also came down with Ebola. He was given blood transfusion from Dr. Kent Brantley, who sent blood to him. They were both of the same type. And of course, for the blood transfusion to work, if you're going to have a transfusion that's going to grant you immunity, you need to have the same type of blood for a transfusion. But also, there are several different types of strains of Ebola. There's at least 5 strains of Ebola. It's not clear that if you have recovered from one strain of Ebola, that it's going to give you immunity to the other strains. Nevertheless, this doctor was given a blood transfusion. So it raises the question, does Dr. Kent Brantley think that he was cured by ZMapp? Or does he think that he was cured by the blood transfusion? Well, actually, he says that he was cured by God. That's where he stands on this. But we have to look at this and question whether or not ZMapp has been proven to be effective. But that's not stopping the medical industrial complex from gearing up to make a lot of money off of this vaccine, perhaps making it mandatory. That's my concern. That's many people's concern. Now, Dr. Sacra is being treated in Nebraska, the Nebraska Medical Center. They are also giving him another experimental drug. They're not saying what it is. They say it is not ZMapp. And this is what the doctor there had to say. He said, "We don't know if this is having an effect at all. We just administered everything that we had access to, honestly, and he's not going to name the drug because he doesn't want to mislead the public into thinking it's a cure." That's something we don't see happening from the other side.
Somebody might weaponize Ebola.
If I were a bioterrorist and I had a chance to weaponize 5, 6, or 7, I would not pick Ebola.
A country that actually weaponized Ebola.
Human trials of GSK's experimental vaccine, which Britain's largest pharmaceuticals company is developing with the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH, are to be fast-tracked with funding from an international consortium. Vaccines normally take 10 years to develop, but GSK said it hopes to finish the first phase of trials by the end of 2014. You don't say. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something very, very sinister going on here behind this entire Ebola vaccine agenda. This is what it's all about, as you should clearly see by now. Yes, GlaxoSmithKline, a multinational pharmaceutical vaccine company, one of the largest in the world, largest in Britain, but this company just so happens to be as fraudulent and as corrupt as can be as well. And this has been documented. Surprised? So what do we have on record about this wonderful consumer healthcare company headquartered over in London that currently holds the responsibility of creating a vaccine for the protection of the public from this so-called Ebola crisis, right? Let's see how much your government cares about you. I'm sure this company is very nice. Let's see. What do we have here? GlaxoSmithKline fined $3 billion after bribing doctors to increase drug sales. Huh. Guardian. You don't say. Sales reps in the U.S. encouraged to missell antidepressants, Paxil and Wellbutrin, and asthma treatment, Advair. Wow. GlaxoSmithKline has admitted to corporate misconduct in the U.S. Pharmaceutical group GlaxoSmithKline has been fined $3 billion after admitting bribing doctors and encouraging the prescription of unsuitable antidepressants to children. Glaxo is also expected to admit failing to report safety problems with the diabetes drug Avandia and in district court in Boston on Thursday. The company encouraged sales reps in the U.S. to missell 3 drugs to doctors and lavished hospitality and kickbacks on those who agreed to write extra prescriptions, including trips to resorts in Bermuda, Jamaica, and California. Wow, you cannot get more scumbaggery, more fraudulent, more corrupt, more disgusting than this company right here, GlaxoSmithKline. You can put them up right up there with Monsanto, okay, and the rest of these evil companies that are running the show here. Okay, let's continue. UK government accepts swine flu vaccine cause narcolepsy in children. Guardian, swine flu vaccine can trigger narcolepsy. UK government concedes. Review of fresh evidence find jab given to 6 million people in Britain can occasionally cause sleep disorder. I wonder who created this swine flu vaccine. Let's see here. The Pandemrix vaccine, sounds like pandemic, made by GlaxoSmithKline, was given to high-risk groups, including children and those with asthma, diabetes, and heart disease at the height of the 2009-2010 swine flu pandemic. Across Europe, around 31 million people received the jab. The vaccine was made specifically to tackle pandemics and is very different to the normal seasonal flu vaccine, which has not been linked to narcolepsy. Yes, yep. Lest we forget that GSK manufactured this Pandemrix swine flu vaccine, which resulted in hundreds to several thousand children worldwide developing narcolepsy. And guess what? This swine flu, their swine flu vaccine, their little baby here, was also fast-tracked, not properly tested. That's going to sound more and more familiar to you guys as this Ebola vaccine agenda moves forward. And I'm going to show you that right now. But they used this, they used the children of the world as guinea pigs, okay, for an untested neurotoxic vaccine, okay? The result? Narcolepsy. And, you know, now the parents of children, of all of these children, are battling with governments to get compensation for the brain injuries, even to this day. Did you guys know this? Did you guys know that? Will you guys ever hear about this from your corporate nightly news when they are telling you not to worry that GlaxoSmithKline is coming to the rescue with the Ebola vaccine? Absolutely not. Never. I hope if you're new to this, you're beginning to see the real picture here.
A new vaccine to prevent Ebola can't come soon enough.
Next week, we're going to be putting this vaccine for the first time in humans.
20 healthy adult volunteers in Maryland will get an experimental vaccine made by GlaxoSmithKline. Researchers hope it will trigger immunity to Ebola. The vaccine will also be tested in Britain and the African nations of Mali and Gambia. Human trials of other drugs are being expedited too, to fight an epidemic that at the moment seems unstoppable.
So remember how they quote-unquote fast-tracked their precious swine flu vaccine here? Again, it might sound familiar because that is exactly what they are doing again with this Ebola vaccine, right? Ebola vaccine trials fast-tracked by international consortium. Ebola vaccines racing forward at record pace, right? Fast-tracking an Ebola vaccine may prove too slow. I wonder what they have in mind. Can GlaxoSmithKline go from 0 to 150 on an Ebola vaccine program? Oh, wow. I'll leave you links for everything I'm showing you guys. I'm going to leave 1,000 links under this video, okay? It's a very simple business model, really. Create panic, and you have your approval without proper testing, right? You see how clever? And they can keep doing this because they know the public doesn't know or pay attention. And they know that the corporate media that they have in their pockets and are in league with will never report on anything negative surrounding these vaccine companies. Are you kidding me? You understand now? It's very clever, very, very clever, and very sinister.
Good morning. That's right. We're joined by Glaxo's Chairman of Research and Development and Vaccines, Dr. Moncef Slaoui. Dr. Slaoui, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone.
It would be wonderful if you could walk us through where you are in development of your vaccine. We hear timelines like 10 years to develop a vaccine, but obviously given the scope of the outbreak in West Africa, you're accelerating that. Tell us how soon it could be developed.
Yes. Well, a vaccine actually usually takes anywhere between 10 and 30 years to go from the idea to being available at industrial scale and approved for human use.
Is there any cure for Ebola?
Monday, the first of 39 healthy volunteers began getting the experimental Ebola vaccine.
The first ever human trials of an Ebola vaccine.
An Ebola vaccine.
An Ebola vaccine.
Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine.
Cure for Ebola.
Die from Ebola.
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 Cure